showcasing bio-based products. This is one of my favorite programs, and it's really been a privilege to be able to work on this program as part of my federal career. Today, I'm also very excited. We have an excellent panel. We have a panel of 5 members that have been real thought leaders and champions of the bio-based program. So what we're trying to do here today is talk about the difference between the public and private sectors. You know, what do manufacturers need from the government? What does the government need from manufacturers? And the reality is that there's some fundamental differences between the public and private sectors. You know, we use language, we use different acronyms, and at the end of the day, we have differing goals and objectives. So what we'd like to explore in this panel this morning is how can we work better together to meet our mutual goals and objectives? So before I introduce the panel members, I would like to just do a quick poll of the audience. How many of you here are from the private industry? Okay, great. And how many folks are from state, private, or federal government? Excellent. So we should have a really thought-provoking and interesting discussion. So we'll move to the panel members now. As I said, we have 5 panel members, 2 from the public sector and 2 from the private sector. We'll start with public sector. We have Cindy Molina, who is from the Executive Office of the President for the Office of Management and Budget. Welcome, Cindy. I'll make sure I get these titles right. And next we have David Asiello, who provides support to the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense of Installations and Environment. From the private sector, we have David Bingham-Heimer, thank you, Global Technology Manager from Cargill Industry Specialists. Doug Giles, Global Marketing Director from Universal Textiles Technologies. And last but not least, Scott Cooley from Reichelt Incorporated. He serves as the North American Coatings Technology Director. So welcome, panel members. So we'd like to start by having each panel member answer a couple questions. If you could please introduce yourselves and tell the audience what your role is in terms of the bio-based industry, and also for the public sector members, tell them what your agency is doing to expand the use of bio-based products. So again, just introduce yourself and what your role is with bio-based markets and what your agency is doing to expand the use of bio-based products. Cindy, would you like to start us off?
I thought I was going to go to Space City. Good morning. My name is Cindy Molina. I've been at the Office of Management and Budget in the Executive Office of the President for many years, more than Lisa has been in the government. And always working on great procurement issues and bio-based for a very long time, since Ron got it put into an executive order many years ago. So I was surprised to hear just now with these survey results that we still have a knowledge and awareness problem in the government. But I was heartened to see that we do have a 60% increase in familiarity from the government respondents. Of course, they're the ones coming to this symposium, so I guess they're with you. But we have really tried over the last couple of years to improve and increase bio-based purchasing. In this administration, that effort began with the White House World Development Council, which was mentioned yesterday by some of the speakers. They decided that the president needed to emphasize that above and beyond what was already in the sustainability executive order that he signed in October 2010 and 2009. So in February 2012. I helped coordinate throughout the White House the presidential memo on bio-based purchasing and worked with the Office of Science and Technology Policy, the Domestic Policy Council, the Council on Environmental Quality, and other counterparts within OMB to make sure that that went out. And since February 2012, I've been working hard with those same folks to make sure that agencies are implementing that directive. We think that bio-based purchasing is a major part of the sustainability framework. Of our goals right now are framed around greenhouse gas reduction. We think that bio-based purchasing can really help agencies reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. It's not just about green procurement. It helps the carbon footprint, the energy efficiency goals. It helps us meet our sustainable green building objectives. And it also is a major part of, because all of the bio-based products are renewable products, it also helps reduce emissions and replace in the carbon footprint for the government. So one of the things that I see that we have done are asking agencies to submit a bio-based purchasing strategy a couple years ago, and then we've been asking them where we find them to be weak in certain areas. If we review them and USDA helps us with that review, if we think agencies aren't doing enough, we'll go back and say, can you update that for us? And we look at those annually. We also do a scorecard every 6 months, and we ask agencies to look at least 5% of their total acquisitions for quarterly. And then within that, we want them to do a sustainable acquisition review to see how much of those acquisitions contain the requirements to meet the objectives in the executive order, that 95% of their acquisitions are sustainable and are meeting the bio-based and other green purchasing like RCRA and other requirements. Now, as part of that, because of the presidential memo, we asked agencies for FY13 and FY14 to really emphasize the bio-based part of that purchasing. We asked them to emphasize it on contracts that should include bio-based and to really look at that. And so we've been getting those results. And then beyond that, each year at the end of June, agencies submit to both CEQ and OMB, and we work in a partnership together with USDA on this strategic sustainable performance plans. I just call them SSPPs. That they come in at the end of this month, and we are looking at those, and a big section of that is on the green procurement sustainable acquisition, and a big part of that is how are you doing on the bio-based. And those, we look for actions for them to emphasize education and training, tracking their purchases, making their data quality better on what they're tracking, and then last but not least, reviewing specifications. And again, that was one that showed up here. The government doesn't think we have a problem there, but obviously industry does. So I think that's one we need to emphasize a little more and look a little more closely at, and I think Dave will probably talk about that a bit.
Thank you, Cindy. Our second member from the public sector is David Asiello, and he works for the Department of Defense, which is really one of the major buying activities for the federal government. The federal government spends about $500 billion a year on total procurements, and I think defense spends upwards of $300 billion a year. So what they do can have a major impact on the market. David, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in the market, and what your agency is doing to promote the use of bio-based products?
Sure. Is this on? So my name is David Asiello. I work for the Secretary of Defense, the Office of Installations and Environment, and in that role, my capacity is primarily to integrate environment, safety, and occupational health activities into our weapons systems programs, which is a little bit outside of what we're talking about today, as well as I oversee the development of the sustainability plans, as Cindy mentioned, environmental technology programs, and the last, definitely not least, our sustainable green procurement programs. We've moved away from the terminology green procurement into sustainable procurement. I think it resonates better within DoD. As part of that, I've been really, focusing on all aspects of sustainable procurement. Of course, bio-based being one of those, and one that's been getting a lot of attention. As far back as I hosted an event at the Pentagon more than several years back. We had a couple senators, Senator Lugar, Congresswoman Capture, the Secretary of Agriculture was there, and our Deputy Secretary of Defense at the time, William England, who was a prior Secretary of the Navy, who in his remarks mentioned or talked about bio-based being an energy security issue, and energy security being a national security issue. So we in DoD look at our sustainability activities across the board as well as drilling down into sustainable procurement and then drilling down a little further into bio-based procurement as a mission imperative. That's how we frame it in our sustainability plan. It's not just about doing the right thing for the environment from the sustainability aspect, but what we try to demonstrate, and we've been able to do this, I think, relatively successfully, is that if we move to more sustainable products, bio-based products, we're going to help the warfighter, the sailor, the airman, the marine, the soldier, and the artisans that are working on various systems or in our installations to do their jobs more effectively while protecting their health and well-being. And so that's where we go with this. That's what we try to drive home. Some of the activities that we're doing, I think it was interesting in the survey that was put up there. We talked about lack of knowledge and performance, and those two aren't mutually exclusive by any means. And I've been going out to installations over the last couple of years, and although it's not that surprising to me, there is a general lack of knowledge that drills down into our installations. So we might, in Washington, put out policies, and we oversee, my office oversees 31 components, DoD components. You think of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and DLA, maybe it's the big five, but there's other DoD components like Missile Defense Agency, Defense Commissary Agency, various intelligence agencies. So we're really large, and like you said, we dwarf all the other federal agencies combined. So as the Department of Defense kind of goes, the federal government goes, and I know that's why we've been under the gun, maybe it's not the right terminology, privileged. How encouraged, yes, encouraged strongly to try to perform, but that being said, it's very complicated. DoD is operate all around the world, 5,000 installations across the entire world. Again, 65% of the federal government's energy use is the Department of Defense. So we're a massive organization. So trying to get the knowledge base across DoD has been kind of challenging. So what we do is we go to installations, and we see by demonstrating the performance of projects, we're not just showing the sailors and the soldiers, the airmen, marines, that they do work, we're also talking to them about bio-based products. We're showing, hey, look, maybe what you thought didn't work 20 years ago has changed over time. And also, as you know, so we have surveys that we provide our installations to try to increase the knowledge of this. And so the outreach, I think, has been very successful. We've recently launched a repository of sustainable products, bio-based being the kind of genesis of that, and so that companies or that we can, as we demonstrate these products, we're able to put them in our database or our repository. We just launched that in January. So again, help with outreach to raise the awareness across the department. We developed an online learning course several years ago, which was housed on a Defense Acquisition University on green and sustainable products, bio-based again being a primary component of that. And that was open to all federal agencies to take. And most recently, the way the department operates, we talked about the FAR earlier. We operate under the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulations. We've been working more and more to include clauses within the DFAR, including bio-based, to try to have, I guess, more of a hammer to encourage our buyers, our departments, to be that are actually using these products, and the contracting officers that put the clauses in the contracts to go to a bio-based product over a non-bio-based product, if at all possible, if performance, cost, and availability are there. And I do want to mention something quickly about availability. We in DoD, we have to constantly worry about national security issues, and we want to make sure that products are available. We don't want, one of the selling points for going to bio-based is the fact that we need to get away from some of these petroleum-based products. And again, we talk about the national security issues, delivering energy to the forces. It's a very dangerous proposition. Troops are dying because of trying to deliver water and fuel to the front lines. So the less that we have to rely on petroleum in general, we're saving lives. But that being said, also the availability problems, because we don't want to have to rely on something that may be only manufactured from a nation state that we may not be friends with in a couple of years. And that changes a lot over time. So we're very aware of these opportunities, and I think more and more as we implement these sustainability opportunities, bio-based being one of them, into our defense planning guidance, which is how we operate from a strategic perspective, we're going to be much more inclined to focus on the mission imperative as opposed to just the main sustainable aspects of this. So we're in the process of developing, we've actually developed it, it's in our coordination process now with DoD instruction, which is how we operate in DoD. And once that's implemented and published, that would be the kind of the hammer within internally how we're going to have to operate in the future. So that's just some of the things that we're doing in DoD, but we encourage companies to come talk to us about engaging in our demonstration program. And well, the last thing I do want to mention, we're also looking at certification labeling, third-party certifying, multi-attribute labeling. Because one of the struggles we have, and I mentioned this to Cindy, on several occasions are, biobased is one of those areas that we need to focus on. There are others in the mandatory preference programs, both for environmental and outside of it, for sustainability and outside of sustainability. So we need to try, I think, as a federal government, come together on how do we make decisions that are best for raising those, not entirely all of those. Because right now, if we put too much preference and emphasis in one area, others may not reap the benefits. And so we're looking for kind of a balanced approach, and that's one of the things that we need, I think, spend some time on as a federal government.
Thank you. Wow, it sounds like you're doing a lot. I'm confident that having people like you in DoD will really be able to move the needle, so thank you. So let's move to our private sector panel members now. So for the private sector panel members, if you could please tell us a little bit about yourself and about what your firm is doing to market bio-based products to the government. Scott, would you like to start us off?
Sure. We're kind of a different case than a lot of folks on this panel today. We don't sell anything directly to the government. We are an intermediate manufacturer. So we make polymers that we use in the painting coatings industry. And one of the building blocks that we use in a lot of our polymers is oil soybean. And this is not in there to make it green or a bio-renewable. It's actually what makes the product work. So in our case, our story has been in the commercial market. We're pushing price, we're pushing performance and availability, and we're trying to get away from the petrochemical feedstocks. So we found that the bio-based program is something, and the bio-preferred program is something that we have some interest in. And we're trying to figure out how we can educate our customers to become part of this program. So some of the things that Wilusz has done is we have 12 of our products now with the bio-preferred label. And they range from 34 up to 68% of bio-renewable content. And we have had stellar sales in the commercial market over the last couple of years for 40% growth the last 2 years. And our challenge has been a lot of our customers don't sell to the government. So we're trying to figure out is how we put our customers in touch with the government. So we're sort of the middleman right here. We have a product